Today, I want to walk you through 4 important vitamins that play a role in vascular health, circulation, and the body's natural ability to maintain healthy blood vessels. And before we get into those vitamins, I want you to pay attention to something even more important: the signals your legs may already be giving you. Poor circulation does not always announce itself with a dramatic symptom. Sometimes it develops quietly, gradually, through changes that people simply attribute to getting older. But your body has ways of communicating when blood is not reaching your tissues as effectively as it should. So, before we discuss nutrition, take a moment and ask yourself whether you have noticed any of 5 particular warning signs. If even one sounds familiar, it deserves your attention rather than dismissal. And stay with me through this discussion, because I want to explain not only where these nutrients come from, but also how they interact with the biology of your blood vessels, and why food-based nutrition can be such an important part of a healthy circulation strategy. The first warning sign is persistent tingling, that strange sensation in your feet or legs that seems to return again and again. Perhaps it initially feels like your foot has fallen asleep, or like there is a mild prickling sensation underneath the skin. You may notice it after sitting for a long time, while resting at night, or sometimes without any obvious trigger at all. Occasional tingling can have many explanations, but persistent or recurring sensations should not automatically be written off as a normal consequence of aging. Your nerves depend on an adequate supply of oxygen and nutrients, and circulation is part of the system that delivers those resources. When blood supply to peripheral tissues becomes inadequate, nerve fibers can become stressed and may begin producing abnormal sensations. That can include tingling, numbness, burning, or a feeling that your feet simply do not feel quite right. The important point is that tingling itself does not tell us exactly what the underlying cause is. It can occur for several different reasons, including nerve problems, metabolic conditions, pressure on a nerve, or changes in circulation. That is why persistent symptoms deserve proper medical evaluation rather than self-diagnosis. Your body may be giving you information, and the wise response is to listen carefully and determine what that information actually means. The second warning sign is persistently cold feet, even when the surrounding environment is warm. Many people experience cold hands or feet occasionally, and in many cases that is completely harmless. But when your feet consistently feel unusually cold, especially when the rest of your body feels comfortable, it is worth considering whether blood is reaching the extremities normally. Blood carries oxygen and heat throughout the body, so changes in circulation can influence how warm your feet feel. Again, this is not something we should automatically blame on age. Getting older does change many aspects of vascular function, but persistent coldness can have multiple causes and should be understood in context. If cold feet are accompanied by pain, numbness, skin color changes, weakness, or wounds that are slow to heal, that becomes even more important to discuss with a healthcare professional. The third warning sign is cramping in the legs, particularly when you walk or when cramps repeatedly wake you during the night. This is one of those symptoms that can be surprisingly easy to ignore. A person may assume the muscles are simply tired, that they did too much walking, or that nighttime cramps are just another unavoidable part of getting older. But pain or cramping that reliably appears during physical activity and improves when you rest can be associated with a condition known as intermittent claudication. In peripheral artery disease, for example, narrowed arteries can reduce the amount of oxygen-rich blood reaching working muscles. When the muscles demand more oxygen during walking, the available blood flow may not be enough to meet that demand, and discomfort can develop. Rest reduces the muscle's oxygen requirement, so the pain may improve. That pattern is clinically meaningful. Nighttime leg discomfort can have many other causes as well, including medications, muscle problems, nerve disorders, dehydration, or other medical conditions. And if you experience symptoms resembling restless legs, with an uncomfortable urge to move your legs that repeatedly interferes with sleep, that should also be discussed with a healthcare professional, because it may have a different underlying cause. The important lesson is simple: recurring leg pain is information. It is not something you should automatically accept as an unavoidable part of aging. The fourth warning sign involves changes in the skin and wounds that seem unusually slow to heal. This is one of the areas where simply looking at your legs can sometimes provide useful information. Pay attention to whether the skin on your feet or lower legs looks noticeably different from how it normally appears. Perhaps it seems unusually pale, bluish, reddish, or darker in certain areas. Maybe the texture has changed, the skin has become unusually thin or fragile, or a small cut seems to remain open much longer than you would expect. Changes in skin appearance can occur for many reasons, but circulation is an important factor because healthy tissue requires a continuous supply of oxygen and nutrients. When blood flow is impaired, the body can have a harder time repairing damaged tissue. That is one reason why wounds in people with significant vascular disease may heal slowly and why even a small injury can become more difficult to manage. Swelling can also become an issue, particularly when the veins are struggling to return blood efficiently from the legs back toward the heart. This is where it becomes important to distinguish between the arterial and venous sides of circulation. Arteries carry oxygen-rich blood away from the heart, while veins return blood toward the heart. Problems affecting either system can produce different patterns of symptoms, and that distinction matters when determining the right treatment. The fifth warning sign is the appearance of varicose veins or smaller spider veins. These visible veins are common, especially as people get older, and in many cases they are not dangerous by themselves, but they can also indicate that the valves inside the veins are not functioning as efficiently as they should. Healthy veins contain valves that help keep blood moving in the correct direction. When those valves become weak or damaged, blood can pool in the lower legs, increasing pressure within the veins. Over time, veins may become enlarged, twisted, or more visible beneath the skin. That is the biological process behind many varicose veins. Spider veins are smaller and closer to the skin's surface, and they are often primarily a cosmetic concern, although symptoms can occur in some people. The key point is not to panic when you see a visible vein, but to understand what your circulation may be telling you. If visible veins are accompanied by persistent swelling, aching, heaviness, skin changes, ulcers, or significant discomfort, medical evaluation is appropriate. Taken together, these 5 signs tell us something important. Your circulation is a complex biological system, and maintaining it requires more than simply looking for one miracle ingredient. It depends on healthy blood vessels, appropriate blood pressure, normal metabolic function, movement, hydration, nutrition, and, when necessary, medical treatment. This is also why I want to be careful with the idea that a vitamin can simply dissolve an existing blood clot or physically clean a blocked artery. Vitamins are nutrients, not substitutes for emergency treatment, anticoagulant therapy, vascular procedures, or other evidence-based medical care. A suspected blood clot can be a serious medical problem and requires professional assessment. Nutrition can support the biology of healthy blood vessels, but it should never be presented as a replacement for appropriate medical treatment. With that foundation in place, let's look at the first nutrient and understand what it can realistically contribute to cardiovascular and vascular health. The first vitamin is niacin, also known as vitamin B3. Niacin is a nutrient that has been studied extensively because of its relationship with lipid metabolism, cardiovascular biology, and energy production. Most people have heard the name, but many do not realize how many important biochemical processes depend on vitamin B3. Your body uses niacin to produce molecules involved in cellular energy and metabolic reactions, which means it participates in fundamental processes occurring inside nearly every cell. When we talk about vascular health, however, one of the most interesting areas is its relationship with cholesterol. Historically, prescription-strength niacin has been used to modify blood lipid levels, particularly by raising HDL cholesterol and lowering triglycerides, while sometimes producing changes in LDL cholesterol. But this is an area where modern medicine has become much more nuanced. Although niacin can alter cholesterol measurements, that does not automatically mean that everyone benefits from taking high doses of niacin supplements. Large clinical studies have not shown that adding niacin routinely to contemporary cholesterol-lowering therapy provides the cardiovascular protection people once hoped for, and high-dose niacin can produce significant side effects. So when we discuss vitamin B3 today, I want you to think about it first as an essential nutrient obtained through a balanced diet, rather than as a high-dose treatment for blocked arteries. Your arteries are living tissues, not rigid plumbing pipes, and they respond to metabolic signals, inflammation, blood pressure, physical activity, and the quality of the nutrients available to your body. A healthy dietary pattern supports those systems together. Niacin also participates in the production of NAD and NAP, molecules that help cells manage energy and respond to oxidative stress. That becomes particularly relevant as we age because our cells are constantly exposed to metabolic stress and must continually repair themselves. But again, this does not mean that taking more niacin automatically slows aging or prevents every vascular problem. Nutrition is most powerful when it works as part of a broader biological system. And the good news is that vitamin B3 is not difficult to obtain from ordinary foods. You can find niacin and related forms of vitamin B3 in foods such as poultry, fish, eggs, meat, nuts, seeds, and certain fortified grains. Chicken breast can provide a substantial amount, while fish, such as tuna and salmon, can contribute vitamin B3 along with other valuable nutrients, including omega-3 fatty acids and, depending on the food, vitamin D. Almonds can also contribute to overall nutrient intake and make a convenient snack. The recommended amount of niacin is relatively modest. For most adult men, the recommended dietary allowance is around 16 milligrams of niacin equivalents per day, while adult women generally need around 14 milligrams. Pregnancy and breastfeeding increase requirements. A varied diet can usually provide these amounts without difficulty. This is one of the reasons I consistently emphasize food before supplements. Whole foods do not simply provide one isolated nutrient. They deliver proteins, minerals, fats, fiber, antioxidants, and other compounds that interact within the larger nutritional environment of the body. There is also an important reason to be cautious with supplemental niacin. High doses of certain forms can produce what is called a niacin flush, a temporary sensation of warmth, redness, itching, or burning of the skin caused by blood vessel dilation. Although a typical flush is not usually dangerous, it can be extremely uncomfortable, and higher dose niacin can produce more serious effects, including liver toxicity and changes in blood glucose or uric acid. That is why high-dose niacin should never be treated as an ordinary wellness supplement without medical supervision. The food-first approach is generally much more sensible for meeting normal nutritional needs, and as we move forward, we will see that another vitamin has an especially important structural role in maintaining the tissues that support your blood vessels, particularly because your body cannot manufacture healthy collagen without it. That nutrient is vitamin C. And understanding its role takes us directly into the biology of your veins, your arteries, and your skin. Vitamin C is one of the nutrients that almost everyone recognizes, but its importance goes far beyond the common idea that it is simply a vitamin for the immune system. From a vascular perspective, vitamin C is deeply connected to the structure and maintenance of your blood vessels, connective tissues, skin, and the mechanisms your body uses to repair damaged tissue. To understand why, we need to look at collagen. Collagen is one of the most abundant structural proteins in the human body. It helps provide strength and flexibility to tissues throughout the body, including the connective tissue that supports blood vessels and the skin covering your legs. And vitamin C is essential for the enzymes involved in collagen production. Without adequate vitamin C, normal collagen synthesis becomes impaired. That does not mean that taking large quantities of vitamin C will automatically make your veins stronger, but it does mean that maintaining an adequate supply is fundamental to normal tissue structure and repair. This distinction matters because good nutrition is not about taking enormous amounts of one nutrient. It is about providing your body with what it needs, consistently, so that its biological systems can function normally. When vitamin C intake is inadequate, connective tissue can become compromised, wounds may heal poorly, and the integrity of tissues throughout the body can suffer. Severe deficiency can produce scurvy, a condition historically associated with bleeding gums, bruising, poor wound healing, and weakness. Fortunately, severe deficiency is uncommon when people have access to a varied diet. But even without severe deficiency, consistently poor dietary intake is not something we should ignore, particularly in older adults whose nutritional needs may become more difficult to meet for a variety of reasons. Vitamin C also functions as an antioxidant, helping protect cells from oxidative damage. Your body naturally produces reactive molecules as part of normal metabolism, and environmental factors can add to that burden. Antioxidants are part of the body's defense system against excessive oxidative stress. In the vascular system, oxidative stress and inflammation are closely connected to the processes that contribute to endothelial dysfunction and cardiovascular disease. The endothelium is the thin layer of cells lining your blood vessels, and these cells are constantly responding to signals from your blood, your metabolism, your hormones, and your environment. Keeping that system healthy is essential for normal vascular function. This is one reason a diet rich in fruits and vegetables is consistently associated with better overall cardiovascular health. It is not because one particular fruit or vitamin acts like a magic cleaning agent inside your arteries. It is because these foods provide a broad collection of nutrients and bioactive compounds that support multiple biological pathways at the same time. Vitamin C is abundant in many simple, affordable foods. Citrus fruits such as oranges and lemons are familiar sources, but there are many others. Strawberries, kiwi, guava, bell peppers, broccoli, and other vegetables can provide substantial amounts. Guava, in particular, is exceptionally rich in vitamin C, while kiwi can provide more vitamin C per gram than an orange. Red bell peppers are another excellent source and can easily be added to salads or cooked meals. The important point is variety. You do not need to depend on one food. You can obtain vitamin C from several different foods throughout the day, making it much easier to maintain adequate intake without relying on supplements. There is also a practical reason to pay attention to how these foods are prepared. Vitamin C is sensitive to heat, oxygen, and prolonged storage, so excessive cooking or long exposure to air can reduce the amount available. That does not mean you should never cook vegetables. It simply means that including some fresh fruits and lightly cooked vegetables in your diet can help preserve their vitamin C content. And when it comes to supplementation, more is not necessarily better. The recommended daily intake for adults is relatively modest, and the tolerable upper intake level for adults is 2,000 milligrams per day from all sources. Taking very high amounts can cause gastrointestinal symptoms such as diarrhea, nausea, and abdominal discomfort. In some people, especially those with particular risk factors, very high intake may also contribute to kidney stone formation. So once again, the sensible strategy is to meet normal nutritional needs through food whenever possible, rather than assuming that a large supplement dose will create a proportionally larger benefit. Now let's connect this back to the legs. If you experience heaviness, swelling, skin changes, or slow wound healing, vitamin C may be one small piece of the larger nutritional picture, but it cannot correct every cause of poor circulation. For example, chronic venous insufficiency occurs when the veins in the legs have difficulty returning blood efficiently toward the heart. Peripheral artery disease, on the other hand, involves narrowed arteries and reduced blood flow to the limbs. These conditions require different approaches, and neither should be treated simply by drinking a vitamin-rich beverage. If you have a wound that refuses to heal, severe or worsening leg pain, significant swelling, sudden discoloration, or unexplained changes in temperature, you should seek medical evaluation rather than trying to manage the problem through nutrition alone. Nutrition supports the body, but diagnosis determines treatment. And this becomes even more important when we discuss our third vitamin, because vitamin K sits directly at the intersection of nutrition and blood clotting. Vitamin K is one of the most misunderstood nutrients in this entire conversation, partly because people hear the word clotting and immediately assume that anything associated with clotting must be dangerous. But the biology is much more precise than that. Your body needs a carefully regulated clotting system because bleeding has to stop when a blood vessel is injured. At the same time, blood must remain fluid enough to move through the circulatory system without forming inappropriate clots. Vitamin K is required for the normal activation of several proteins involved in coagulation. In other words, it participates in the system that allows your body to control bleeding. It does not simply make your blood clot more. The body regulates this process through a sophisticated balance involving many proteins, platelets, blood vessel signals, and anticoagulant mechanisms. Vitamin K is one component of that network. It also has another important biological role, involving proteins that regulate calcium within tissues. This is where the conversation about vascular health becomes particularly interesting. Arterial calcification refers to the accumulation of calcium within the walls of arteries, a process associated with vascular stiffness and cardiovascular disease. Vitamin K-dependent proteins are involved in pathways that help regulate where calcium is deposited in the body. However, we should be careful not to turn this into the claim that vitamin K supplements can simply remove existing calcium deposits from arteries. The evidence is more complex, and the most important takeaway is that vitamin K is necessary for normal physiology. A nutrient can be biologically essential without becoming a miracle treatment. One of the best ways to obtain vitamin K is through green leafy vegetables. Spinach, kale, collard greens, cabbage, broccoli, and other leafy greens can provide significant amounts, particularly vitamin K1. Certain fermented foods provide vitamin K2, which belongs to a related group of compounds. The simplest strategy for most people is not to obsess over individual forms, but to include a variety of nutrient-rich foods in a consistent eating pattern. This brings us to an important clinical issue, especially for older adults. If you take warfarin, a commonly prescribed anticoagulant, vitamin K deserves special attention. Warfarin works by interfering with vitamin K-dependent clotting pathways. That means sudden changes in vitamin K intake can alter how the medication works. The important point is not that someone taking warfarin must completely avoid spinach, kale, or other green vegetables. In fact, eliminating healthy vegetables can be a poor nutritional decision. The key is consistency. If your usual diet contains a stable amount of vitamin K-rich foods, your healthcare team can take that intake into account when monitoring and adjusting your medication. But if you suddenly consume a very large amount of vitamin K one day and almost none the next, it can make anticoagulation control more difficult. This is why people taking warfarin should communicate significant dietary changes to their healthcare provider and follow the monitoring plan they have been given. Do not change your medication dose on your own based on what you eat. Your anticoagulant therapy should be managed according to appropriate blood testing and professional guidance. This is a perfect example of why nutrition and medicine should work together rather than being treated as competing approaches. You can certainly build a nutrient-rich green drink using foods such as spinach, kale, celery, kiwi, ginger, mint, and a small amount of cinnamon. Blending these ingredients rather than straining them preserves the fiber, which can support digestive health and contributes to satiety. But I would frame such a drink correctly. It is a convenient way to increase your intake of vegetables, fruits, and plant compounds. It is not a blood clot dissolving treatment. If a person has a suspected deep vein thrombosis or another acute clot, a green juice is not an appropriate response. A clot can become life-threatening if it travels to the lungs, so symptoms such as sudden leg swelling, significant pain, warmth, redness, unexplained shortness of breath, chest pain, coughing blood, or sudden difficulty breathing require urgent medical attention. This distinction is extremely important because responsible health information should never encourage someone to substitute a dietary remedy for medical care when a potentially dangerous vascular event is occurring. With that said, a diet consistently rich in leafy greens can be an excellent part of a long-term strategy for overall cardiovascular health. And now we come to the fourth vitamin, vitamin E. Vitamin E has attracted attention because of its antioxidant properties and its role in protecting cell membranes. It is a fat-soluble vitamin, meaning it behaves differently from water-soluble vitamins such as vitamin C. It becomes incorporated into the lipid environments of cells, where it helps protect polyunsaturated fatty acids from oxidative damage. This is particularly relevant because cell membranes contain fats that can be damaged by free radicals. Vitamin E is part of the body's natural antioxidant defense system, helping limit that process. But once again, we need to separate biological function from exaggerated claims. Vitamin E does not literally scrub your arteries clean, and it should not be described as a guaranteed way to prevent blood clots. Its role is more subtle and more interesting. It supports normal cellular protection and contributes to the body's defense against oxidative stress. Vitamin E is found naturally in foods such as almonds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, avocado, spinach, broccoli, and vegetable oils. Nuts and seeds are particularly concentrated sources, which is one reason a small serving can make a meaningful contribution to daily intake. Approximately 30 grams of almonds provides a substantial amount of vitamin E, along with healthy unsaturated fats, magnesium, protein, and other nutrients. Avocado and extra virgin olive oil can also contribute vitamin E while providing beneficial fats that fit naturally into a Mediterranean-style dietary pattern. This is one of the reasons I prefer talking about food patterns rather than isolated nutrients. When you eat an avocado, for example, you are not simply consuming vitamin E. You are also getting fiber, potassium, monounsaturated fat, and a range of other compounds. When you eat nuts and seeds, you are getting protein, minerals, healthy fats, and plant compounds alongside vitamin E. Your body does not experience these nutrients in isolation. They interact within a much larger biological network. There is also an important caution regarding vitamin E supplements. High-dose vitamin E supplementation is not something I would recommend casually, especially for someone already taking medication that affects blood clotting. Vitamin E can have antiplatelet effects, and high supplemental doses may increase bleeding risk in certain circumstances. The evidence surrounding vitamin E supplementation and cardiovascular outcomes is also far more complicated than the simple idea that more antioxidant activity automatically equals better health. In some large studies, supplementation has not produced the cardiovascular protection people expected, and high doses can create unwanted risks. Food is therefore the safer and more practical foundation for most people. Rather than taking a large capsule and assuming you have solved a vascular problem, build meals that regularly include nuts, seeds, vegetables, fruits, fish, and healthy oils. That approach provides a broad nutritional environment that supports the cardiovascular system in several ways at once. When we put these nutrients into context, the real message becomes much more powerful than any claim about a single vitamin. Vitamin B3 participates in energy metabolism and lipid biology. Vitamin C supports collagen formation and connective tissue maintenance. Vitamin K is essential for normal coagulation and participates in pathways that regulate calcium within tissues. Vitamin E helps protect cell membranes from oxidative stress. These functions overlap with the biology of healthy blood vessels, but none of them should be viewed as a standalone cure for blocked arteries or existing clots. Your circulatory system is influenced by blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, smoking, physical activity, body composition, kidney function, inflammation, genetics, medications, and many other factors. That is why the strongest approach is always comprehensive. If your goal is to protect your legs and cardiovascular system as you age, the question should not simply be, which vitamin should I take? The better question is, what daily pattern gives my blood vessels the best environment in which to function? And that brings us to the practical part of this discussion. How can you build these nutrients into ordinary meals without turning your day into a complicated supplement schedule? The answer is much simpler than most people expect. The most effective way to use these nutrients is not to chase them through a cabinet full of supplements. It is to build a daily eating pattern that gives your body a steady supply of the nutrients it needs, while also supporting the other foundations of vascular health. Think of your circulation as a living system rather than a set of pipes that simply need to be cleaned. Your blood vessels are constantly responding to movement, blood pressure, blood sugar, inflammation, hormones, sleep, stress, and the foods you eat. That is why consistency matters much more than a single large dose of any vitamin. You want to create an environment in which your blood vessels can function normally every day. One practical approach is to distribute different nutrient-rich foods across your meals, rather than trying to consume everything at once. Foods containing vitamin B3 can fit naturally into breakfast or lunch. Vitamin C-rich fruits and vegetables can be included early in the day. Vitamin K-rich leafy greens can become part of your main meal. And vitamin E can easily be paired with healthy fats from foods such as avocado, nuts, seeds, and extra virgin olive oil. This does not mean that your body requires a specific vitamin at a specific hour. There is no biological clock that says vitamin C only works at breakfast or vitamin E must be consumed at dinner. The larger principle is simply to create a consistent dietary pattern that provides a broad range of nutrients throughout the day. A breakfast, for example, could include an egg, a serving of kiwi or guava, and a small handful of almonds. You could add fresh fruit or another vitamin C-rich food, depending on your preferences. That combination provides protein, healthy fats, vitamin C, vitamin E, and several other nutrients without requiring a complicated preparation routine. If you prefer a simple meal, that is perfectly fine. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consistency. At lunch, you might choose grilled chicken or salmon alongside a generous serving of spinach, kale, broccoli, or another leafy green vegetable. Add cucumber, tomatoes, peppers, avocado, and a modest amount of extra virgin olive oil, and you have created a meal that provides fiber, minerals, healthy fats, and multiple vitamins in their natural food matrix. Salmon has the added advantage of providing omega-3 fatty acids, which have been extensively studied for their role in cardiovascular health. Again, this is what makes whole foods so valuable. One meal can influence several biological pathways at the same time. Dinner can remain relatively simple. A salad containing spinach, avocado, and vegetables can be paired with a source of protein and a small portion of seeds, such as pumpkin or sunflower seeds. A cup of unsweetened herbal tea can be used if you enjoy it, but the tea itself is not necessary for circulation. The larger principle is to avoid turning healthy eating into an unnecessarily complicated ritual. A sustainable diet is one you can follow repeatedly, not one that looks impressive for 3 days and then becomes impossible to maintain. This same principle applies to the green juice or blended drink we discussed earlier. If you enjoy combining spinach, celery, kiwi or apple, ginger, mint, cinnamon, and water, it can be a convenient way to increase your intake of plant foods. Blending, rather than straining, keeps the fiber in the drink, which is preferable to removing it. But I want to make an important correction to the idea that such a beverage can dramatically clear blocked arteries within a matter of days. There is no reliable scientific evidence that a particular juice can physically dissolve established arterial plaque or guarantee that circulation will transform in 10 days. What a nutrient-rich drink can do is contribute to an overall dietary pattern that supports cardiovascular health. That distinction is not meant to make the approach less exciting. In fact, I believe the real science is more interesting because it shows how many small, consistent choices can influence your health over years. Spinach provides folate, vitamin K, carotenoids, and other plant compounds. Celery contributes potassium and other nutrients. Kiwi or apple provides fiber and plant compounds, while kiwi also contributes vitamin C. Ginger contains bioactive compounds that have been studied for their anti-inflammatory and digestive effects. Mint adds flavor and some plant compounds, while cinnamon can be used in small amounts as part of a balanced diet. Put those ingredients together, and you have a nutrient-dense beverage, but it remains a food, not a medication. If you enjoy it, use it as one component of a healthy routine rather than expecting it to replace proven cardiovascular treatments. Now let's move beyond vitamins because there are several daily habits that may have an even more direct effect on the circulation in your legs. The first is movement. Walking is one of the simplest forms of physical activity, and for many older adults, it is one of the most practical ways to support cardiovascular and vascular health. You do not need an expensive machine or an extreme workout. A regular walk can help your muscles use glucose more effectively, improve fitness, support blood pressure control, and encourage the normal movement of blood through the legs. The muscles in your lower legs act in part like a pump. When you walk, your calf muscles contract and help push venous blood upward toward the heart. This is one reason prolonged inactivity can make the legs feel heavy or swollen. If you are currently inactive, you do not have to begin with a long walk. Start with an amount that is safe for your current condition and gradually increase it as your fitness improves. If walking causes predictable pain in the legs that goes away with rest, however, do not simply force yourself to walk through it. That pattern can be associated with peripheral artery disease and deserves medical evaluation. Your exercise plan should match your health status. The second habit is to avoid remaining in one position for excessively long periods. Sitting for many hours without moving can reduce the efficiency of venous return and contribute to stiffness and swelling. If your work or routine requires prolonged sitting, make a point of standing periodically, moving your ankles, stretching your legs, and taking a short walk when possible. There is no magic rule that your blood suddenly becomes dangerous after a precise number of minutes, but regular movement breaks are a sensible way to interrupt prolonged inactivity. The third habit involves leg elevation. For people who experience swelling related to venous insufficiency, elevating the legs for a period of time can help reduce venous pressure and allow fluid to move more effectively away from the lower extremities. It is not a cure for the underlying problem, but it can be a useful supportive measure. Compression therapy may also be appropriate for certain forms of chronic venous disease, but that decision should be made with a healthcare professional because compression is not appropriate in every circulation disorder, particularly when significant arterial disease is present. Hydration is another part of the picture, but it should also be discussed accurately. And dehydration can affect blood volume and can make you feel unwell, particularly in hot weather or during illness. Maintaining adequate fluid intake is important for normal physiology, but the claim that simply drinking extra water will prevent all blood clots is not supported by evidence. Blood clot formation depends on much more than hydration. It is influenced by factors such as immobility, surgery, cancer, certain medications, inherited clotting conditions, pregnancy, hormone therapy, and other medical circumstances. The right goal is to drink enough fluid to meet your body's needs, rather than forcing excessive amounts of water. If your doctor has given you fluid restrictions because of heart failure, kidney disease, or another condition, follow those instructions instead of adopting a generic hydration target. This is another example of why personalized medical advice matters. There are also several precautions that older adults should keep in mind before making major nutritional changes. If you take warfarin, consistency in vitamin K intake is especially important. You do not need to eliminate green vegetables, but you should avoid dramatic day-to-day changes without discussing them with your healthcare team. Your anticoagulant dose may need adjustment based on your stable dietary pattern and your blood test results. If you take aspirin, another antiplatelet medication, or an anticoagulant, be cautious about adding high-dose vitamin E or other supplements that may influence bleeding. The same principle applies if you have diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, kidney disease, or another chronic condition. Food-based nutrition is generally a strong foundation, but supplements can behave differently from foods and can interact with medications. A supplement can also create the illusion that you have addressed the underlying problem when the real issue is uncontrolled blood pressure, high LDL cholesterol, smoking, diabetes, or physical inactivity. Those factors deserve direct attention. And there is another warning sign that should never be ignored: a sudden change in one leg. If one leg suddenly becomes swollen, painful, warm, or red, especially when the symptoms are noticeably different from the other leg, you should not attempt to treat it with vitamins or a homemade drink. Deep vein thrombosis can present in this way, and it requires prompt medical assessment. If such symptoms are accompanied by sudden shortness of breath, chest pain, fainting, rapid heartbeat, or coughing up blood, that may indicate a pulmonary embolism and requires emergency medical attention. These are not situations where waiting to see whether a juice or supplement works is appropriate. The same caution applies to sudden coldness, severe pain, pale or blue skin, or a loss of sensation in a limb. Those symptoms can indicate a serious reduction in blood flow and should be evaluated urgently. Responsible circulation care means knowing the difference between long-term prevention and an acute medical problem. Once urgent conditions have been ruled out, however, there is a great deal you can do to support your vascular health through your daily routine. Keep moving. Eat a wide variety of vegetables and fruits. Choose healthy fats more often than highly processed fats. Include adequate protein to support muscle health as you age. Keep blood pressure and cholesterol under control. If you have diabetes, work with your healthcare team to manage blood glucose. If you smoke, stopping is one of the most powerful things you can do for your blood vessels, and if you have been prescribed medication for a cardiovascular condition, take it as directed rather than trying to replace it with supplements. These habits may not have the dramatic appeal of a single miracle ingredient, but they are supported by a much broader body of evidence. Vascular health is built over time. The goal is not to find one food that magically cleans your arteries. The goal is to repeatedly give your cardiovascular system the conditions it needs to function well. Now, let's bring all of this together into a simple routine you can actually follow. In the morning, begin with a balanced breakfast that includes a source of protein, a fruit rich in vitamin C, and, if you enjoy them, a small portion of nuts or seeds for vitamin E and healthy fats. If you choose to have the green blended drink, treat it as part of that meal pattern rather than as a replacement for breakfast or as a medicinal treatment. At lunch, make vegetables a substantial part of the plate and include a source of protein such as fish, poultry, beans, or another appropriate option. Add healthy fats such as avocado or olive oil in reasonable portions. At dinner, continue the same principle: vegetables, protein, fiber, and minimally processed foods. You do not need to separate vitamins according to a rigid schedule because your body is constantly absorbing and using nutrients throughout the day. What matters most is the quality and consistency of your overall dietary pattern. And if you are over 60, that consistency becomes even more valuable because maintaining muscle, mobility, cardiovascular fitness, and adequate nutrition can have a major influence on independence and quality of life. There is also something important about the way we think about aging. Getting older does not mean you should expect your legs to become weak, swollen, painful, or constantly numb. Some changes are normal, but many problems commonly blamed on age are actually influenced by modifiable factors or treatable medical conditions. Your vascular system remains responsive throughout life. Blood pressure can be improved, cholesterol can be treated, physical activity can be increased, smoking can be stopped, dietary quality can improve, and medical conditions affecting circulation can often be managed much more effectively when they are identified early. That is why these symptoms matter. They are not simply inconveniences. They are clues. And when you combine those clues with appropriate medical evaluation and a consistent lifestyle, you give yourself a much better opportunity to protect your circulation over the long term. The 4 vitamins we have discussed can certainly be part of that strategy. Vitamin B3 contributes to normal energy metabolism and can influence blood lipid levels at pharmacological doses, although high-dose niacin should only be used under medical guidance. Vitamin C supports collagen production and normal connective tissue maintenance. Vitamin K participates in normal blood coagulation and calcium-regulating pathways. Vitamin E provides antioxidant protection within cell membranes. But the most important lesson is not that one vitamin is the strongest. The evidence does not support ranking these nutrients as if one can replace the others. Their biological roles are different, and their value comes from being part of an adequate and varied nutritional pattern. Your blood vessels do not need a superhero. They need a healthy environment in which many systems can work together. And this brings us to the final part of our discussion: how to turn this information into a realistic 10-day routine without falling into the trap of expecting instant medical transformation. A 10-day period can be useful as a starting point for building consistency. It can give you a simple structure for eating more vegetables, moving every day, drinking an appropriate amount of fluid, and paying attention to how your body feels. But 10 days cannot guarantee that arterial plaque will disappear, that an existing clot will dissolve, or that a chronic vascular condition will be cured. Those outcomes depend on the underlying disease and often require medical treatment over much longer periods. The real goal of the next 10 days should be to begin a pattern that you can continue for months and years. And if you use a simple green drink as part of that pattern, let the ingredients be ordinary, accessible foods rather than exotic supplements. Spinach, celery, kiwi or apple, ginger, mint, cinnamon, and water are enough. Blend them thoroughly and keep the fiber rather than straining it away. Then use the drink as one small part of a broader health routine that includes movement, balanced meals, appropriate hydration, and proper medical care. That is where the real value lies, not in a miracle claim, but in giving your body the raw materials and daily habits it needs to keep doing what it was designed to do. If you decide to use the green blended drink as part of your routine, keep the ingredients simple and remember what its real purpose is. 1 cup of fresh spinach can provide vitamin K, folate, carotenoids, and a variety of other plant compounds. 1 stalk of celery contributes water, potassium, and additional phytonutrients. A kiwi can provide a substantial amount of vitamin C, while half an apple adds fiber and a mild natural sweetness. A small piece of fresh ginger can add flavor and bioactive compounds that have been studied for their potential effects on inflammation and digestion. A few fresh mint leaves make the drink easier to enjoy, and a small amount of cinnamon can provide additional plant compounds. Blend these ingredients with water until smooth, and keep the fiber rather than straining it away. That fiber is part of the food, and it can support digestive function and help slow the absorption of naturally occurring sugars. But I want you to keep one principle firmly in mind. This is a nutrient-rich food, not a medication. There is no credible evidence that drinking this combination for 10 consecutive days will literally dissolve arterial plaque or guarantee that an existing blood clot will disappear. If you enjoy the drink, use it as a convenient way to increase your intake of vegetables, fruits, and plant foods. The real benefit comes from what happens when this kind of choice becomes part of a larger pattern. You can make those 10 days even more meaningful by pairing the drink with a few simple habits. Walk regularly, according to what your health and fitness allow. If you have been inactive for a long time, begin gradually, rather than trying to compensate with one exhausting workout. Pay attention to your legs during movement. If you develop predictable pain while walking that improves when you stop, speak with your doctor, because that pattern can be associated with peripheral artery disease. Do not force yourself through it simply because you have been told that walking is healthy. The right exercise is the exercise that is appropriate for your cardiovascular and vascular condition. If your legs tend to swell after long periods of sitting, stand up periodically and move around. Flex and extend your ankles. Take a short walk through your home or workplace. These small interruptions can help you avoid spending most of the day completely sedentary. If you have chronic venous insufficiency and your healthcare professional has recommended leg elevation, spending some time with your legs elevated can also help manage swelling. And remember that compression garments are not automatically appropriate for everyone with leg swelling. When arterial circulation is significantly reduced, compression can require special consideration, so it should be used according to professional advice. Hydration should also be approached intelligently. Drink enough fluid to satisfy your body's needs, particularly in hot environments or when you are physically active, but do not assume that drinking enormous amounts of water will wash away clots. Your kidneys, heart, and other organs have to regulate fluid balance, and some people with heart or kidney conditions have specific fluid restrictions. If that applies to you, follow the guidance given by your healthcare team. For everyone else, the practical goal is simply to avoid becoming dehydrated. Pay attention to thirst, urine concentration, weather, activity, and individual medical needs. Good hydration supports normal physiology, but it is only one piece of circulation health. It cannot compensate for smoking, uncontrolled blood pressure, severe cholesterol abnormalities, diabetes, prolonged immobility, or an untreated vascular disorder. And there is another part of circulation care that is often overlooked because it seems so ordinary: protecting your muscles. Your calf muscles are not just responsible for helping you walk, they also contribute to venous return by contracting during movement and helping move blood upward from the lower legs. This is sometimes described as the calf muscle pump. When you spend long periods sitting or standing without moving, that pump is not working as effectively. Over time, some people notice heaviness, fatigue, or swelling in their legs. Regular walking, gentle ankle movements, and changing position throughout the day can support normal venous return. For older adults, maintaining muscle strength is equally important because muscle loss can gradually reduce mobility. Less mobility often leads to even less movement, creating a cycle that can affect both circulation and independence. This is why vascular health cannot be separated from overall physical health. Your heart, blood vessels, muscles, nervous system, and metabolism operate as one interconnected system. Let's also talk about what happens when people hear the phrase blood thinner or anti-clotting vitamin, because this is an area where misinformation can become dangerous. Vitamin K is essential for normal clotting, but that does not mean you should manipulate your vitamin K intake based on whether you want your blood to be thicker or thinner. The clotting system is far more sophisticated than that. If you are taking warfarin, the goal is stable anticoagulation. Your healthcare team monitors your response and adjusts your medication according to your individual needs. Eating green vegetables is not inherently dangerous. The problem is sudden, major changes in vitamin K intake that can alter the effect of warfarin. So if spinach, kale, broccoli, or other green vegetables are already part of your diet, you generally do not need to eliminate them simply because you take warfarin. Instead, keep your intake reasonably consistent and communicate significant dietary changes to the professional managing your anticoagulation. Never change the dose of warfarin yourself because you ate more vegetables. Never stop an anticoagulant because you started drinking a green juice. And never assume that a food or supplement can substitute for medication that has been prescribed to prevent a potentially dangerous clot. The same caution applies to vitamin E. Vitamin E is an important nutrient, but high-dose supplementation is not automatically beneficial. When consumed through foods such as almonds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, avocado, spinach, and vegetable oils, vitamin E becomes part of a broader nutritional package. High-dose supplements are different. They deliver concentrated amounts that may have effects beyond normal dietary intake. In some people, especially those taking anticoagulants or antiplatelet medications, high supplemental doses may increase bleeding risk. This is one reason I prefer a food-first approach. Your body does not need enormous amounts of vitamin E. It needs an adequate amount as part of a balanced diet. The same principle applies to vitamin C and vitamin B3. More is not always better. Nutritional science is not based on the idea that if a little is good, 100 times more must be better. Biology does not work that way. There are optimal ranges, and outside those ranges, a nutrient can become ineffective or even harmful. This is particularly important for adults over 60 because medication use becomes more common, and several medications can interact with supplements. A person may be taking medication for blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes, heart rhythm, pain, or blood clot prevention. Adding several concentrated supplements without professional guidance can create unexpected interactions. Even a supplement marketed as natural is still biologically active. Natural does not automatically mean harmless. Food and supplements should therefore be treated differently. Foods generally deliver nutrients in moderate amounts, together with fiber and other compounds, while supplements can deliver much higher concentrations. If you have a medical condition or take prescription medication, discuss supplements with your doctor or pharmacist before adding them to your routine. There is another important point I want you to remember. If you have symptoms suggesting poor circulation, do not wait for a dietary experiment to tell you whether something is wrong. A medical evaluation can provide information that food cannot. Your clinician may examine your pulses, skin, swelling, temperature, and sensation. Depending on the symptoms, they may recommend blood tests, an ankle brachial index, Doppler ultrasound, or other investigations. These tests can help distinguish between arterial disease, venous disease, nerve problems, muscle conditions, and other causes. That distinction matters because the treatment can be completely different. A person with chronic venous insufficiency may benefit from one strategy, while someone with peripheral artery disease may require another. Someone with a blood clot requires yet another approach. The more accurately we identify the cause, the more precisely we can treat it. And I want to return to the idea of cleaning clogged veins, because the language we use matters. Veins and arteries are not interchangeable. Arteries carry blood away from the heart, while veins return blood toward it. Plaque buildup is primarily an arterial process involving cholesterol, inflammatory cells, connective tissue, and other components. Varicose veins are generally related to venous valve dysfunction and increased venous pressure. A deep vein thrombosis is a blood clot within a vein. These are three different biological problems. They can all affect the legs, but they are not the same disease and should not be treated as though one vitamin can solve all of them. Understanding that difference protects you from false promises and helps you recognize when professional care is necessary. The same principle applies to the idea that one special juice can transform circulation in exactly 10 days. You may feel better after changing your diet and becoming more active, especially if your previous routine was low in vegetables and high in processed foods. You may notice changes in digestion, energy, or how heavy your legs feel, but those subjective improvements should not be confused with the physical disappearance of arterial plaque or an established blood clot. Atherosclerosis develops over years, and meaningful changes in cardiovascular risk also take time. The good news is that the body remains responsive to healthier habits even after many years. Blood pressure can improve, cholesterol levels can improve, fitness can improve, blood sugar control can improve, weight can change when appropriate, and these changes can contribute to a lower long-term cardiovascular risk. That is a much more realistic and scientifically grounded reason to begin a healthier routine. So if you want to make the next 10 days a meaningful experiment, do not measure success by whether a vein suddenly looks different. Measure success by whether you were able to establish behaviors you can continue. Did you eat vegetables every day? Did you include fruit? Did you choose nuts or seeds instead of highly processed snacks? Did you move your body regularly? Did you interrupt long periods of sitting? Did you take your prescribed medications consistently? Did you sleep adequately? Did you avoid smoking? Did you drink enough fluid for your individual needs? Did you monitor symptoms instead of ignoring them? Those are the markers that matter. 10 days can become the beginning of a much longer health journey. And if you are already experiencing leg pain, swelling, tingling, temperature changes, or wounds that are not healing, I want you to use that information constructively. Write down when the symptoms occur. Notice whether they affect one leg or both. Pay attention to whether pain appears during walking or at rest. Note whether swelling changes during the day. Observe any skin color changes. Bring those details to your healthcare professional. These observations can help your clinician understand the pattern and decide what evaluation is appropriate. Your body is giving you data every day. The more accurately you observe it, the more useful that information becomes. There is also a broader lesson here about aging and cardiovascular health. We often talk about longevity as though it means simply adding more years to life. But healthy longevity means preserving function and independence during those years. Being able to walk comfortably, climb stairs, play with grandchildren, shop for yourself, travel, and participate in daily activities depends on many systems working together. Healthy circulation is one of those systems. So is muscle strength. So is balance. So is metabolic health. This is why a nutrient-rich diet should not be viewed only as a way to prevent a single disease. It is part of the larger process of maintaining the biological capacity to live actively. The 4 vitamins we discussed can fit naturally into that strategy. B3 can be obtained from foods such as poultry, fish, eggs, meat, nuts, seeds, and fortified grains. Vitamin C comes from fruits and vegetables such as kiwi, guava, citrus fruits, strawberries, bell peppers, and broccoli. Vitamin K is abundant in leafy green vegetables. Vitamin E can be found in almonds, seeds, avocado, spinach, and healthy plant oils. You do not need an elaborate supplement schedule to obtain these nutrients if your diet is varied and adequate. And if your diet is currently limited, do not try to change everything overnight. Add 1 or 2 improvements at a time. A healthier breakfast, an extra serving of vegetables, a short daily walk, a handful of nuts instead of a highly processed snack. Small changes become powerful when they are repeated consistently. There is one final issue we need to address before we finish. What you should do if you are already taking treatment for cardiovascular disease. The answer is straightforward. Continue your prescribed treatment unless your own healthcare professional tells you otherwise. Do not stop blood pressure medication because you started eating more vegetables. Do not discontinue cholesterol medication because your diet improved. Do not stop anticoagulants because you began drinking a green beverage. Lifestyle and medical treatment are not enemies. In many cases, they work best together. Medication can address a specific biological problem, while lifestyle changes improve the environment in which your body operates. That combination is often much more powerful than either approach alone. If you take medication for blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, or blood clot prevention, keep your doctor informed about major dietary or supplement changes. This is especially important with anticoagulants because both vitamin K intake and certain supplements can affect treatment. The safest strategy is not fear, it is communication. You do not have to be afraid of vegetables because you take medication. You simply need a stable, informed plan. And you should never be afraid to ask questions. A good healthcare relationship allows you to understand why a medication is prescribed, what your target numbers are, what symptoms should concern you, and which lifestyle changes can safely support your treatment. Now we are ready to bring the entire message together. The goal was never really about finding a single vitamin powerful enough to clean your circulation overnight. The goal is to understand how nutrition, movement, medical care, and daily habits can work together to protect your vascular system. Your blood vessels are living tissues. They respond to what you repeatedly do, not just to what you consume once. A vitamin-rich meal today is useful. A vitamin-rich dietary pattern maintained for years is much more meaningful. A single walk is good. Regular movement is better. Drinking water when you are thirsty is sensible. Maintaining appropriate hydration as part of your daily routine is better. Taking a supplement occasionally may feel proactive, but understanding whether you actually need it is far more important. And if there is one thing I want you to remember from everything we have discussed, it is this. Do not wait for your legs to become severely painful before you start paying attention to them. Watch for changes. Notice your symptoms. Keep moving. Eat a diverse range of whole foods. Manage your blood pressure, cholesterol, and blood sugar. Avoid smoking. Follow prescribed treatment. And when something changes suddenly or dramatically, seek medical attention rather than experimenting with home remedies. The strongest form of prevention is not a miracle recipe. It is informed, consistent action. If you choose to prepare the green drink, keep it simple. Fresh spinach, celery, kiwi or apple, ginger, mint, cinnamon, and water are enough. Blend the ingredients thoroughly and keep the fiber. Enjoy it as part of a balanced meal pattern if you like it, but do not measure its success by claims that it will dissolve a clot or erase arterial plaque in 10 days. Measure its value by whether it helps you eat more plant foods and build a healthier routine. That is a benefit you can actually sustain. And if you have remained with me throughout this entire discussion, I want you to recognize something important. You have already taken the first step, which is paying attention. Health decisions become much more powerful when they are based on understanding rather than fear. Your circulation is not simply a plumbing system that becomes clogged with age. It is a dynamic biological network that adapts to your lifestyle, your environment, your metabolism, and your medical conditions. The more you understand that system, the better equipped you are to protect it. And in the final part, we will bring this journey to a close by reviewing the most practical takeaways, the important safety reminders, and the daily strategy you can realistically carry forward for the long term. As we reach the final part of this discussion, I want you to step back for a moment and look at the bigger picture. We began by talking about vitamins and circulation, but what we have really been exploring is something much more important: how you can protect the health of your blood vessels as you grow older. Your circulation is a remarkable living system. Every second of every day, your heart is pumping blood through an enormous network of arteries, veins, and tiny vessels, delivering oxygen and nutrients to your muscles, your skin, your brain, and every other tissue that depends on them. When that system is healthy, you may barely notice it. You walk, climb stairs, sleep, wake up, and go through your day without thinking about the millions of circulatory events happening inside you. But when circulation begins to deteriorate, the body often gives you clues. Persistent tingling, unusual coldness in the feet, recurring leg pain, swelling, skin changes, wounds that heal slowly, or increasingly prominent veins can all deserve attention depending on their pattern and severity. None of these symptoms proves that you have a particular vascular disease, but they are reasons to stop assuming that everything is simply part of getting older. The most important step is not to search for one food that promises to fix everything. It is to understand what your symptoms could mean, and, when appropriate, have them evaluated. Once you know what you are dealing with, you can combine medical treatment with the lifestyle strategies that support your long-term health. That is where nutrition becomes powerful. Vitamin B3 helps your cells carry out essential energy-producing reactions and plays an important role in metabolism. Vitamin C is required for normal collagen production and connective tissue maintenance. Vitamin K participates in normal blood coagulation and calcium-regulating pathways. Vitamin E helps protect cell membranes from oxidative damage. These are real biological functions. They are important, but none of them means that a vitamin capsule can simply dissolve an existing blood clot or scrub an artery clean. That distinction is essential because good health information should empower you without creating false confidence. If you want to support your circulation through food, the simplest approach is also one of the most sustainable. Build your meals around minimally processed foods. Include colorful vegetables, leafy greens, fruits, beans, nuts, seeds, fish, poultry, whole grains when appropriate, and healthy plant oils. These foods provide far more than isolated vitamins. They deliver fiber, minerals, protein, healthy fats, antioxidants, and thousands of naturally occurring compounds that interact with the biology of your body. Think about a handful of almonds. You are not simply consuming vitamin E. You are also getting magnesium, protein, unsaturated fats, fiber, and other nutrients. Think about a serving of spinach. You are not simply consuming vitamin K. You are also receiving folate, carotenoids, minerals, and other plant compounds. Think about kiwi or guava. You are not simply taking vitamin C. You are eating a whole food that contains fiber and a broader collection of nutrients. This is why food-first nutrition is such a valuable foundation. It gives your body a package rather than a single, isolated molecule. And for most people, that package is exactly what a healthy, long-term dietary pattern should provide. The same principle applies to the green drink we discussed. If you enjoy it, make it fresh, using spinach, celery, kiwi or apple, ginger, mint, cinnamon, and water. Blend it thoroughly and keep the fiber. It can be an easy way to increase your intake of vegetables and fruit, especially on days when your meals are less varied. But please do not turn it into something it is not. It is not a treatment for deep vein thrombosis. It is not a replacement for anticoagulant medication. It does not guarantee that arterial plaque will disappear in 10 days, and there is no responsible way to promise that every person will feel dramatically different after drinking it for a specific number of days. Your body is individual, your circulation is individual, your medical history is individual. What we can say with confidence is that a dietary pattern rich in plant foods is associated with better overall cardiovascular health, and adding more of these foods can be a meaningful step in the right direction. Now, let's review the daily habits that can make this strategy much more effective. First, move your body regularly. Walking is one of the simplest options because it requires almost no equipment and can be adapted to many fitness levels. If you are able, aim for regular physical activity throughout the week rather than relying on one intense session. Your muscles, particularly the muscles of your lower legs, play an important role in moving venous blood back toward the heart. Second, avoid spending the entire day in one position. If you sit for long periods, stand up regularly and move your legs. Flex your ankles. Stretch gently. Walk for a few minutes when possible. Third, if you have swelling related to a known venous condition and your healthcare professional has recommended elevation, elevate your legs for a period of time to help reduce pressure and fluid accumulation. Fourth, maintain appropriate hydration according to your individual medical needs. And fifth, protect your cardiovascular health at the foundation. Keep your blood pressure controlled, manage cholesterol, control blood sugar if you have diabetes, maintain a healthy body composition when appropriate, avoid smoking, and follow the treatment plan prescribed by your healthcare professional. These steps may sound less exciting than a miracle remedy, but they are the habits that can make a genuine difference over the long term. There is also one habit that deserves special emphasis. Do not ignore changes in your legs. If you notice gradual heaviness or swelling, make a note of it. If pain repeatedly appears when you walk and improves when you rest, tell your doctor. If a wound is taking unusually long to heal, have it evaluated, especially if you have diabetes. If your feet become persistently cold or change color, seek medical advice. And if one leg suddenly becomes swollen, painful, warm, or red, do not wait for a vitamin or juice to solve the problem. A blood clot is a medical condition that requires proper evaluation. If those symptoms are accompanied by sudden chest pain, difficulty breathing, fainting, a rapid heartbeat, or coughing blood, seek emergency medical attention. The same applies to sudden severe pain, loss of sensation, or a dramatic change in the color or temperature of a limb. These situations can represent serious problems with blood flow, and time can matter. For people taking warfarin, there is another message I want you to remember clearly. Consistency is more important than avoidance. Vitamin K-rich vegetables are not automatically forbidden. Spinach, kale, broccoli, cabbage, and other greens can still be part of a healthy diet. The concern is sudden, major changes in intake that can interfere with stable anticoagulation. Your healthcare professional can adjust your treatment based on your diet and monitoring results. So, if you want to increase your intake of leafy greens, talk with the clinician managing your warfarin rather than making a dramatic change overnight. And if you take other anticoagulants or antiplatelet medications, be equally careful about adding high-dose supplements, especially vitamin E or other products marketed for blood thinning. Never assume that because something comes from a plant, it cannot interact with medication. Your body does not care whether a biologically active compound came from a pharmacy or a plant. It responds to the molecule. This is also why I would encourage you to resist the temptation to build your health strategy around very high doses of vitamins. The body requires nutrients within appropriate ranges. Once those needs are met, adding dramatically more does not necessarily produce dramatically better results. With some nutrients, excessive intake can actually create problems. High-dose niacin can cause flushing and, at pharmacological doses, can affect the liver, blood sugar, and uric acid. Excessive vitamin C can cause gastrointestinal symptoms and may contribute to kidney stone risk in susceptible people. High-dose vitamin E can increase bleeding risk in certain individuals. Vitamin K can interfere with the action of warfarin when intake changes substantially. These are not reasons to fear vitamins. They are reasons to respect them. Nutrition is powerful precisely because it interacts with the body, and anything powerful deserves to be used thoughtfully. So what should your practical plan look like from here? Keep it simple. Start your morning with a balanced meal, rather than relying on a supplement. Include a source of protein, a vitamin C-rich fruit, and perhaps a small portion of nuts or seeds. If you enjoy the green blended drink, include it as part of your overall eating pattern. At lunch, make vegetables a significant portion of your plate and include a healthy protein source. Add healthy fats such as avocado or extra virgin olive oil in reasonable amounts. At dinner, continue the same basic structure. There is no need to obsess over exact timing, because your body does not require you to consume vitamin B3 at one specific hour, vitamin C at another, or vitamin E at precisely bedtime. Consistency across the day and across the week matters far more than an artificial schedule. And do not forget the role of sleep. Although we have focused heavily on circulation and nutrition, your body performs important repair and regulatory functions during sleep. Poor sleep can affect blood pressure, appetite regulation, glucose metabolism, inflammation, and overall cardiovascular health. If leg discomfort is repeatedly waking you at night, that is another reason to investigate the underlying cause rather than simply accepting it. Healthy circulation should support your ability to rest, recover, and remain active during the day. The goal is not just to make a number on a laboratory report look better. The goal is to preserve function. You want to wake up able to move. You want to walk without unnecessary pain. You want enough energy to participate in your life. You want your heart and blood vessels to support you as you continue to age. There is something deeply encouraging about that idea. Aging is not a single event that happens to you on your birthday. It is a gradual biological process, and many of the factors influencing how well we age remain responsive to our choices and to appropriate medical care. You cannot control every part of your biology. Genetics matter. Previous illness matters. Environmental exposure matters. But you can influence physical activity, smoking, dietary quality, blood pressure management, cholesterol management, diabetes control, sleep, and whether you seek help when symptoms appear. Those choices accumulate. One healthy meal may not transform your circulation. One walk may not transform your cardiovascular fitness, but thousands of healthy choices made consistently can change the trajectory of your health. That is the message I want you to carry forward from this entire discussion. Do not look for a miracle vitamin. Look for a better pattern. Do not wait for a severe symptom before paying attention. Learn to recognize the early signals. Do not replace medical treatment with a home remedy. Use nutrition and lifestyle as partners to appropriate medical care. And do not underestimate the power of ordinary foods. Spinach, broccoli, kiwi, guava, almonds, seeds, fish, poultry, avocado, and healthy oils may not look like dramatic interventions, but together they can form the foundation of a dietary pattern that supports cardiovascular health. If you have been thinking about starting, you do not need to change your entire life tomorrow morning. Choose one step. Take a walk. Add a serving of vegetables to your next meal. Replace a highly processed snack with a handful of nuts. Drink water when you are thirsty. Schedule the medical appointment you have been postponing because of that persistent leg symptom. Take your prescribed medication consistently, then build from there. Health transformation is rarely the result of one enormous decision. More often, it comes from small decisions repeated until they become part of who you are. And if you found this information useful, share it with someone who may benefit from understanding the difference between normal aging and symptoms that deserve attention. Maybe it is a parent who keeps mentioning cold feet. Maybe it is a friend who has persistent leg swelling. Maybe it is someone who has been ignoring pain while walking because they assume it is simply age. Sharing accurate health information can encourage people to seek help earlier, and early attention can sometimes make an enormous difference. But when you share this information, share the complete message. Vitamins and healthy foods support the body, but they do not replace medical diagnosis or treatment. If you are already part of this community, thank you for being here. Thank you for taking an interest in your health, and for asking questions. The goal of health education should never be to frighten you into changing your behavior. It should be to give you enough understanding that you can make better decisions with confidence. Your body is complex, but the principles that support it do not have to be complicated. Eat a varied diet. Move regularly. Maintain healthy habits. Take care of your medical conditions. Pay attention to changes, and ask for help when something does not feel right. So, as you move forward, remember the 4 nutrients we explored today, not as miracle cures, but as important pieces of nutrition. Vitamin B3 supports essential cellular metabolism and contributes to normal lipid biology. Vitamin C supports collagen and connective tissue. Vitamin K participates in normal coagulation and calcium regulation. Vitamin E helps protect cell membranes from oxidative stress. Give your body these nutrients through a varied diet whenever possible, and let the larger pattern of healthy eating do the heavy lifting. Your circulatory system does not need perfection. It needs consistency. And finally, take care of your legs with the same seriousness with which you take care of your heart. Your legs carry you through your life. They allow you to walk toward the people you love, travel, work, exercise, play with your children and grandchildren, and remain independent. Healthy circulation is part of preserving that freedom. So pay attention to your body. Keep moving. Eat nourishing foods. Follow your medical treatment. And never be embarrassed to ask a doctor about a symptom that concerns you. The earlier you understand what is happening, the more options you may have to address it. Your health is not built in one morning, and it is not lost in one evening. It is shaped by the choices you make repeatedly. Start with what you can control today. Give your body the nutrients it needs. Give your muscles regular movement. Give your blood vessels the support they deserve, and give yourself the opportunity to age with strength, mobility, and independence. That is a far more meaningful goal than simply chasing a quick fix. Take care of your circulation, take care of your heart, and most importantly, take care of yourself.